Part 2 ending of wife always having girls' night out. Wife let me know it's her friend's birthday next week. She wanted permission to join them for dinner. Based on your advice, I said no. I don't want to create the opportunity for wife to have another night on the town. Of course, this leaves me open to looking like a crazy control freak. I can just picture wife's friends' reactions when they find out she isn't allowed to eat dinner at a restaurant on somebody's birthday. The only alternative would have been saying, hey, you can go if I'm invited too, but we've already seen how that turns out. I assume nobody thinks I did the wrong thing by vetoing this dinner. It sounded exactly like the kind of contrived situation people warned me about. I expect wife's sulking behavior will temporarily get worse. My plan is to stay calm and not react emotionally to her pouting. I'm still not sure how to address the tension with our kids, now that everybody's home more often. Since having our birthday talk, I've done a good job handling wife's pouting by staying logical and firm. Some fun activities with the kids. Giving wife the opportunity to participate or not, no pressure. She hasn't come along yet, but I've taken this in stride without getting too mad. If another birthday event comes up, I'll give her the middleman's home by 10 option. In the meantime, wife has honored our agreement by not going on any more nights out. She's been pretty distant, and we haven't slept together lately, but I'm making sure not to respond to this by acting needy or desperate myself. The latest development happened this morning. It struck me as a curveball. Our breakfast routine has become much looser since the kids got older. We still frequently eat together on Sunday mornings, but mainly out of habit. There's no obligation. Today, my son, daughter, and I ended up making pancakes. As we cooked and joked around in the kitchen, somebody called out for wife. She was either sleeping or occupied upstairs. On a normal day, wife would pitch in too, helping make breakfast in her robe and slippers. We took a long time setting the table and waited a while for her. But it became clear wife wasn't joining us. 10 minutes after we started eating, though, she magically appeared. Wife was already wearing her workout gear, evidently in a rush to hit the gym, besides the contrast to the rest of us in our pajamas. Wife's clothes stood out as extra flashy today, even by Lululemon standards. The pants and top blatantly showed off how firm she's become. And how curvy in front. Wife just bounced through the kitchen, grabbed a bottle of water, and bounced out again. Her body language suggested that she was off to have an upbeat morning, even as the quip she made to us sounded overly negative. Oh God, how much bacon is that? If sauntering across the room in workout tights weren't strange enough, consider that our daughter is also a teenager who struggles with weight issues. After wife left, we didn't want to make the situation worse by focusing all our attention on her. We tried talking about the topics we'd been discussing before, but the conversation eventually fell flat. Assuming wife's appearance at breakfast wasn't a complete accident, I don't see what the purpose of her actions would be. I can understand going underground when a spouse does everything possible to hide the questionable behavior they're engaged in. But this seemed like the opposite. What's the point of wife drawing attention to her flashy wardrobe, especially in front of our kids? Almost 2.5 years later, we kept the no girl nights out policy for a while. She ended up focusing on gym activities during this time, like people predicted. Although she attended fewer social events, she was taking an increased interest in her physical appearance. Her wardrobe kept getting updated, with higher end and more flattering clothing. Wife resented not being able to go out and have fun with her friends. She talked about it in counseling, how disrespectful it felt. That wasn't what she pictured marriage would be like as a little girl. Her resentment made wife uncooperative about planning our own date nights. I continued to think of date ideas, take the initiative, make reservations, etc. She would find fault with my suggestions or claim to be feeling unwell. Wife was also unreceptive to my attempts at going to the gym together. She took special classes, like yoga, that were harder for me to join. Her personality continued to sour at home, even around the kids. My son found her standing at the side of the driveway one night, smoking a cigarette and using her iPhone. He is used to wife acting like a bubbly, concerned parent. She didn't appreciate being discovered and acted very cold and impatient with him. He was dismayed. His status quo continued for a couple of months. Then I had to travel for work. In counseling, wife complained that I was able to go on vacation, while she still couldn't see her friends. The therapist backed me up, however. He said my trip had no social connotation to it. The Friday I was gone, My son made overnight plans with his friend. My daughter decided to stay home studying. There was tension between wife and daughter at dinner. Wife announced she would be going out that night. If your father can do it, so can I. Wife didn't want to discuss it any further. My daughter bit her lip and kept studying, after a couple hours showering and getting ready. Wife came downstairs at 10, talking to her ride on the phone. My daughter says she wore a fancy dress. Not excessively short. With a lot of makeup and jewelry, she told my daughter. You can call my cell if there is a problem. Then she left to meet her friend in the driveway. Coming home at 3 a.m., wife woke my daughter while fumbling with the door and bumping into things. My daughter went to use the bathroom and found wife there with the door ajar. Wife had removed her dress and was brushing her teeth. Wearing her expensive outfit, she saw my daughter waiting at the door and said yes. Can I help you? In a loud voice, she was slurring her words. My daughter went back to her room and waited. When I returned, wife was unrepentant about seeing her friends. She said it was a deal breaker for her now. In counseling, she said that if she couldn't see her friends a couple times a month, she was going to leave. For the sake of my family, I compromised, knowing I would have her VAR and followed the next time, anyway. The next girls' night out went down the same as before. A girlfriend picked her up by car. They drove back to the friend's house. My buddy who tailed them waited for a taxi to arrive an hour later. The girlfriend came out dressed nearly the same as before. Wife's clothes were much different and more revealing. The cab dropped them off at a nightclub. Once again, my friend doesn't think he can get inside. I tell him he doesn't need to wait around. Wife gets back to our house at 2:15. I pretend to be asleep while she showers and puts on pajamas. She's in her side of the bed by 2:30. Still smelling a lot like alcohol. Despite the shower. I'd already done preliminary research on attorneys. The next day I contacted one. I also had my friend follow wife when she drove to her next gym session. She left her jacket in the car and walked in wearing yoga pants and a tank top that emphasized a lot of cleavage. 10 minutes later, my friend spots her leaving through the back door with a guy who might work at the gym. 5'11", crew cut. Broad physique, Hispanic features, kind of resembles Charlie Sheen. They get into a black Range Rover and drive to a condo a few minutes away. Going inside, he tries to put a hand on wife's back and wrap it around her waist. She leans away. Walking faster toward the door. My friend sees them reappear 50 minutes later. Wife's hair is wet and combed back, like she just got out of the shower. Walking to the car. The guy lets his hand rest between wife's hip and her. She's less standoffish this time. They park in the rear lot of the gym. No one leaves for a few minutes. The car windows are tinted, but my friend guesses they're out. The guy holds her arm and helps her down the step on the passenger side. They enter the gym and wife walks out the front door a few minutes later. She drives back to our house. At this point, I have the lawyer draft papers so I can serve her. I know wife is planning a night out that weekend, so I force myself to stay dark a few days longer and hire a PI to follow her. It's the same routine as before, changing clothes at her girlfriend's place, taking a cab to the club, etc. Unlike my friend, the PI is able to get inside. He says wife acts like a natural inside the club. She spends 40% of her time at the bar, talking to friends and letting different guys buy her drinks. Half her time is spent on the dance floor. The PI says she dances confidently with men of various ages. A few times, she grinds up against her partner. Once, she lets a young, athletic-looking man put his hands on her on the lips. Wife spends 10% of the night smoking outside with a group of males and females. The PI takes a picture of her huddled with the other smokers, talking to two men in particular. She's wearing a skimpy dress and has someone else's jacket draped on her shoulders. Wife is surprised when I serve her papers. There's a lot of crying and telling me I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. I stay cool and show her the photo. She's standing outside a club, half-dressed, with two tall, sketchy-looking men. Wife hires a lawyer and they try to play hardball. She wants to fight for custody. But neither child wishes to live with her. She ends up keeping the house in the Mercedes. I move with the kids to a condo that's closer to downtown. She files a few motions pertaining to spousal support. Otherwise, we don't see much of her that year. When my daughter can't make plans to go for lunch on her birthday, wife drops off a present instead. She shows up wearing form-fitting dress pants and a blouse that hangs way open at the neck. We conclude that she's had a few procedures done. her eyes, lips and breasts all seem weirdly enhanced. Her hair is bigger and blonder, but she also looks tired and somehow fragile. I suspect that she's drinking a lot. And possibly taking other drugs. The conversation with my daughter is awkward and she doesn't stay long. On her own birthday, my ex invites the kids to dinner at the old house. Her new boyfriend is there. The kids describe him as a younger Polynesian guy who probably goes to her gym. He introduces himself, then hangs out alone in another room. Wife offers everyone champagne to go with the pizza she ordered. The kids decline. Wife calls her boyfriend into the kitchen to get a slice of pizza. She gestures for him to rub her back while she eats. Drinks and talks to the kids. Wife is acting positive and relaxed. The kids don't know what to say while these 6'2" guys rub her shoulders and she asks them questions about school. My son texts me, telling me to pick them up as soon as wife unwraps her present. That situation pretty much sums up how things are going with my ex. I occasionally hear from her lawyer. But she isn't a big part of the kids' lives right now. I try to put on a calm front around her. Inside, my emotions are still a wreck. It's hard getting back into dating, actually impossible. I have not gotten over the broken trust, or having the foundation of my whole life rocked. Sorry, this wasn't a happier update. I hope anyone who cares about what happened with me at least gets some closure. I do believe it's better that I moved on and can potentially experience a more honest relationship in the future. Story 2. I have so many betrayals on so many levels, my mind is awash. My main issues are 1. Is he still cheating? I don't think he is, but I feel he is likely to again. Is he? 2. Is he telling the truth? If he is not, I cannot get over it as there is nothing for me to build on, trust and honesty. As brutal as it may be, is paramount to me. If he is not telling the truth, I have no future with him as there is no trust. 3. Is a cheater really always forevermore a cheater? 4. Is he lying to me about the whole situation? 5. Does he still love her? Do I plan B? Second best. Background. We live separately. He has 1 daughter. I have a daughter of the same age and an older son. His attractiveness comes from his personality. Very funny, very good company. Very cute and adorable. He is handsome in a cute way. You can see that he was a good-looking younger man. I am 37. He is 43. 44 this month. I wish he would just let me go if he can't give me what I need. I am not there yet, though recently I have become very close to the end of the road. I will try to put the facts, reasons, explanations, and my opinions, and I hope for some good advice from some of you, hoping very much for any advice. My short novel follows. Novel being the operative word. Thanks. 1. Together 2 years 4 months. He was. My perfect man, funny, cute, gorgeous. We get on great and I feel complement each other well. I have never been with someone so loving and attentive, helpful. Bonding is ace. A good boyfriend, on the whole. At least he is now. 2. He cheated on me with his ex. They hadn't been split long when I met him and he said he'd dumped her. Lie. She dumped him for another man, and he was over her. Lie, though he insists now it has all come out that this is true, or rather that he missed her but did not want her back. It was just physical affair. So he says. He cheated on me in month 2, 3, 4 and 9, so, 4 times. I knew he was doing that the first 3 times but had no idea on the 4th time. I always made excuses for his weird behavior. They were reasonable excuses and that is why I stayed, and I had fallen completely head over heels in love with this man. Throughout that time, it was like a roller coaster. So much loving and then so cold, didn't know if I was coming or going. I finally dumped him properly after 9 months of this roller coaster. He begged me back, total and dedicated love for me, only ever been me and only ever would be me. I took him back and a week later. In his state of relief, he was in touch with her for their 4th and final, or at least so he says. Duck, he says he never loved her. Which makes it worse. At least if he was still in love with her there was a reason, but no. It was just physical. Does that mean if he can get easy time again, he will go for it? His version of the truth doesn't make complete sense. A few changes here and there and it all fits. One of the changes that makes it all fit. That he was still totally in love with her. He insists this is not true, even though I have said it is easier to deal with it all if that was the case. Please just tell me, he says no. That was not the case. And I went to see her. She said some things that made all his stories make sense. His versions don't really make sense. She said, "He loves me and always will." She said that he has said that to her every time they have seen each other. I saw her a full year after they last slept together and after he had supposedly ignored a text. 5 months before I went to see her. From her, requesting to meet, see below. So, why would you say someone will always love you if you had not slept with them for a year? No contact for 11 months except for bumping into each other on a bus. And when she texted him after that meet, he ignored her. 3. He called her each time for physical affair. She did not pursue him, and so, he finished it in month the 9th of July. But did he? Did she finish with him? He says she did not. He got an attack of conscience following month 9. He did not want to be that kind of person. And so finished pursuing her. He still insists this is true. He also said he couldn't stand the sight of her in that last meet, but he continued to text into August. Why would he text someone he couldn't stand the sight of? I wonder if he couldn't stand the sight of her in July because she said it would be their last time, that or he is just saying that to make it look better. The 4th of July 2017 was the last time, supposedly. But Feb 2019 he bumped into her on the bus. I found out when all of this came out. In May 2019. I visited her in July 2019. Pieced it all together, he went weird on me after the bus meet, cold, same patterns of behavior. Turned me down, didn't fancy me, unloving, why those same patterns of behavior as when he had slept with her. Just because he bumped into her on the bus, he told me nothing happened and no reason for coldness, he doesn't know why. She told me also July was the last time they had slept together. I may have inadvertently fed this to her though, or maybe they rehearsed a story, he knew I wanted to see her. But I am not sure they were still in contact. She said their last thing was ages ago and she didn't know. I tried to pin her down to dates. She also said they had only met a couple of times. He was quite put out by this when I told him what she said, as if by that he was an unmemorable duck. He took it personally. Would you believe it? So, if they had a thing in July, bumped into each other on the bus in beginning of year, he ignored her text of keeping in touch, so he said. She said she actually told him not to contact her anymore. That makes more sense with all that happened, his coldness to me etc. Unless of course they had slept together again, which could be the case, see below with the loo roll. Then why would she say, he loves me and always will? His story makes no sense. Also, he could have given cold on me because he was still in love with her. Like she says. He will always love me, he loved her and bumping into her reminded him of what he lost. Therefore, he went cold on me because I was not her, but, he also tells me she expressed regret on one of their meets. That she shouldn't have broken up with him and should have appreciated him more. I don't know what is true of what he says. I believe he is being basically honest with me but keeping some horrible painful truths from me. Therefore. Which bits are true? Who knows? 5. He says he never loved her when he cheated on me, and yet she says the above. And he went cold on me each time he bumped into her. He went cold on me in July after I went to see her. All his questions on what I'd said to her were about her. How did she seem? How was she? Nothing about what she said and how it made me feel. Nothing about going through each point and addressing so to clear it up. He bumped into her in September 2019, chatted with her. Cold on me, this was after it all came out. I was very upset, obviously. He had promised me I would be the first person he would talk to if he saw her. That he would not want to talk to her, he said that in May when all came out. And then in September. He greeted her like an old friend. I was very, very upset about that, and it brought all back up for me, and then he saw her in October. He says she saw him too. Made moves as if to say hi. But he ignored her. Why would he chat to her in Sept, and ignore her in Oct? My only explanation is that she was telling truth when she said not to contact her again. On the bus meet in Feb, but then where does the loo roll? Below, fit into it. That, or he was stupid in Sept and took on board my upset, and behaved properly in Oct, also. When he saw her in Oct, that was a very specific occasion. He was on his way to get a tattoo. That story is below. 6. He slept with her in his bedroom, at a lodger up in attic room. 7. He was looking for lodgers after his last one moved out. He had a burst of looking. Some calling him, coming to look at house. He was renting out the attic room. Then he moved up to the attic, and no more looking for lodgers. Months go by, downstairs bedroom used as dumping ground for washed and folded clothes etc. One day, probably around March, April, May 2019, or could it have been as early as Feb when he went cold on me? I don't think that early. But possible. I go round and the bed is made up, pillow slips and duvet cover on, yet no one been to look at house. His explanation: he wanted it to look tidier. 8. Since I found out he cheated, May 2019, we had a few hearts-to-hearts. He answered my questions. Long chats. But after those first few, since about June, July, when I asked him a particular question, whether this was the cause or just that he'd had enough talking about it, I don't know, he then got fed up with talking. When I first asked the question, he just went quiet, nothing, thoughtful. Nothing, refused to answer it, every time I brought it up, the issue. Any question, the question. I got stuck on getting the answer to that question. He would get angry, defensive. And walk, very defensive, clam up, refuse to talk. The question was why July? What triggered July? Why did he decide after begging me back to go for her again? Why 5 months in between the last one and that one? Why finish in July? Why not just carry on? Why begin again and end in July? What was the trigger that caused the July thing to happen? That was the issue I wanted to know. What was the trigger? What made him want to pursue again after all that time? Important, I thought, to have that out in the open, to deal with the real issue. After 9 months we were a definite item. So why July? The only answers he ever gave me was it had been a long time without. He gave up in Feb, but the urge was too strong. He did it because he could, did it because he could get away with it, thought he would just see her every 6 months or so. This explanation came just the once, never again, right near the beginning of my questions on this issue. I even gave him an ultimatum. That it was over if he didn't come clean with me. The ultimatum came on the year anniversary of their last thing. There was never any pleading of please believe me, not once. No, you've got to believe me, I am telling the truth. Nothing, he walked rather than talk. No contact for 2 days. Nothing, he didn't make any effort at all. On their anniversary too. A note to put in here, I think, is that he is quite a closed person, not really open about thoughts and feelings. I am the opposite. I spoke to his ex, mother of his child, not the ex in question but whatever, and she expressed surprise at him opening up to me in the immediate aftermath. Said to me, well, he must care a lot then. Since I found out in May 2019, he told me a bullcrap story first, until a week later I had another epiphany and told him he'd better tell me truth or we over. I have tried to trust him. He has told me a few lies since which I knew to be therefore difficult to rebuild trust. Don't know how many he said that I don't know to be lies. He has made great efforts, generally, attentive, loving, calls me all the time, texts. As soon as I don't hear from him for a while, though, I get panicky. He is helpful. He is kind, he cooks for me, looks after me, he wants to make future plans with me. He came back to my house in October with my name tattooed on his arm. Shock. I was speechless. Literally, he is not that sort of person. Also, I know that she cheated on him, used him, and could easily have turned him into a person that puts little importance on relationships and fidelity. I know this could be a scenario because he turned me into that person too. I had to finish with him, July 2017, 9 months in, because I didn't like what I was turning into. I only stayed with him that long because the bonding was so great, which mirrors their relationship. I think. He got treated like crap but stayed with her because the bonding was so great. When he initially told me he had slept with her. When I demanded, he told me. I asked why. He said, "'Cause she's a good shag, nice. Makes me feel so adequate." Except he stayed for 5 years and not 9 months. He is a very physical person, likes it, thrives on it. Is a little kinky. It was like he became her and I became him in his next relationship. He treated me like crap, in between intense loving. And I utterly adored him and would do anything for him. These are the excuses I find to continue with him. That he is not that person anymore. But he has a history of cheating, not as a rule. He has turned some opportunities down. So he tells me, but a history. Nonetheless. He had an affair for the final 2 years with a girlfriend he was with for 11 years. Mother of his child too. She also told me their relationship was well and truly over by the time he began the affair. It seems she was not bitter in any way about his affair. He tells me he was faithful to her completely for the first 9 years. And that he had the opportunity to cheat but did not take it, of course. I was worried by this long affair. But he told me when we first together he wasn't that person anymore. Had grown up, didn't want that, and then proceeded to cheat, but is that because of what his previous girlfriend turned him into? And if she was amazing in bed, kinky I reckon, right up his street, then that is a difficult thing to turn away from if he knows she will give him casual dirty bonding. Especially if she had degraded his ability to love and believe in true and decent loving love. She wasn't loving from what I gather, he couldn't be touchy with her in public. No holding hands, she was a bit cold, and yet he is such a loving man, must have been difficult to become unaffectionate. She twisted and warped him I believe, or maybe I just want to believe that. I don't think he continues to cheat, I believe he is dedicated to me, but I also believe other things have gone on that he refuses to tell me. I don't believe he has given me his all, and if he is not honest with me, what foundation do I have to build on with him? If he continues to lie, how can I ever trust him? So many complications, so many ifs and buts, if you have managed to get to the end of my story. Well done. Thank you for reading, and any thoughts most welcome. I need to know from him, why did he end it in July? Why did that loo roll have no dust? Why was the bed made up? Were there others, or was it just more with her? I need answers from him, but he won't give them, or at least he gives a bit, but I don't feel all. What he says doesn't make sense to me, he continues to get defensive. He talks to me sometimes, but not all. He talked to me about it the other day. First time in ages, but that creates more questions, because it has been so long since he talked to me properly. I don't know what to think, I don't know what goes on in his head, I just want him to do all the things he is supposed to do for me to get over this. But I am doing all the hard work here I feel, all the emotional draining stuff. My head swimming, clinging on for dear life. Tortured by thoughts. Wanting to talk and not feeling able to. Wanting the cold and brutal truth. But not the details. So I don't have to fill in the blanks myself anymore, while he believes that just being loving and attentive is enough. That I should just get over it because he loves me and wants to spend the rest of his life with me, help. Is why I am here, because I do not get what is necessary from within my relationship. I am now forced to look outside. And please, I know I should leave, I am nearly there, but I want advice in order to make sense. If possible, maybe there is no sense. 2 years later, roll on to now, he is a great partner, attentive, loving, but there are many holes in the relationship and we fall out frequently. We have had 2 major splits up to now where I really believed it was over. Wanted it to be over, but we fell back into being back together again. He makes me happy. He loves me how I love to be loved. And we get on brilliant. I believe he loves me a lot. So, that is the background to the relationship. Now the friend. I have seen it happen here before, I think, and I have certainly seen it in real life. I think I planted the seed, so what do I do now? Do I just ditch the friend? I don't want to talk to my man in case I plant the seed in his head too. That my friend fancies him and I don't trust her, he should act appropriately. But not sure he will if the seed is planted. So, this is what happened. On our splits I get worried because he goes to my local pub after work. He works 2 minutes down the road from me. Lives across town. I have asked him not to. But he does. I worry because it would be a nightmare if he found another girlfriend in my area and I had to see them together at my local. A nightmare due to being so much in love with him. On our last major split, it was the same, him going to my local. I have always thought my friend would be his kind of type, started worrying he would ask her out. I said to her, if he ever asks you out for a drink or anything you would tell me, wouldn't you? She expressed shock, as you would, and I said, well, I think you would be his kind of type. Though he would probably shag anything with a heartbeat if we were single and he desperate. It doesn't take long for him to get desperate. Anyway, she said yes, course she would tell me and course she wouldn't accept. Since then, I have noticed small things that make it seem like she is interested, all those small things that nag at the gut. So, anyone experience this? Do I confront her? That is what I want to do, but of course she will deny she thinks of him that way, and that will be an end to the friendship. There have been a few little niggles that have got my gut going, and then a big one which I thought was just a bit odd, which I will be asking her about this anyway when I get a chance. Do I just now avoid her and ditch her? This is the one I want to avoid. She has been a good friend and our daughters get on well, and, the biggest reason, I will have to explain to my man, which will then plant the seed in his head. I don't think he looks at her in any way at all other than my mate, but if I plant the seed that could all change on our next split. My comment. You ever have friends who would go after your partner? How you confront them? Comment down below, sub and bell, and hope you are enjoying this weekend.